You literally have to build out your daily routine from scratch. There's no boss, there's no one micromanaging you, there's none of that. You have to be accountable for yourself.
When you look at it in like those small attainable goals, all of those little small attainable goals add up to that big lofty goal that you want at the end of the day.
Welcome to the Whoopin' the Doctor podcast. I'm your host, Glenn Curry, alongside my co-host, Dr. John Devereaux.
And this week we don't have a guest, so it's just us two. But like always, we're going to start off the episode with our quote of the week. And the quote for this episode comes from a good friend of both of ours and an avid listener, I guess, of the podcast. Her name is Tamara Parker. I'm not sure if she's the originator of this quote, but she did share it to her Instagram page, which is where I got it from. And she said that the secret of your future is hidden in your daily routine. So when you hear a quote like that, Glenn, what does that make you think of, I guess?
Man, dude, that's probably as real as it's going to get, right? I mean, what you do consistently on a day-to-day basis is really going to determine the success that you're going to have. So I do believe those little things that you do, those daily habits, waking up in the morning, getting coffee, working out, writing down your goals, things like that. Those certain things is what's going to mold you, not just like financially, but like mentally to the space that you want to be at. So, I mean, I believe that 100%.
I agree with most of what you were saying. So I truly believe that, we are a sum of our actions, and our routine is what really defines us. Let me ask you then. So what is your daily routine then? You mentioned waking up early, getting coffee, working out, this, that, and the other. So, is that your routine?
Yeah. I mean, more or less, right? So when I get up in the morning, first thing I do is, write down my goals, kind of meditate, talk to the Lord. That's just like some of the things that I do. But once I get up, I'm gone. I'm working on my business. I'm planning my business for the day, answering emails, reaching out to potential clients, potential, partnerships and things like that. My daily routine is strictly the same thing every single day. I might tweak it here and there if I need to, but I try to stay somewhat consistent to what I've been doing. And like I said, I get up early in the morning, maybe about 6:30 in the morning. I work out, get my coffee, read, write my goals down, and man, I just hit the ground running.
Now, for you to say like you do the same thing day in and day out, I wonder how many entrepreneurs actually have that, I don't want to say capability, to be able to stick to that routine.
You know what? And it's interesting you say that, right? Because it's hard, right? Think about it. You have free time, all the free time in the world to do whatever it is. You literally have to build out your daily routine from scratch. There's no boss. There's no one micromanaging you. There's none of that. You have to be accountable for yourself. And it really kind of weeds out the people that's really serious about, moving forward and being successful, because you have to get up in the morning, right? Nobody's going to wake you up. Nobody's going to tap you on your shoulder and say, hey, look, if you don't be here, you're going to get fired. Like, all of that responsibility is yours and yours alone. And it's really about what do you do with the 24 hours that you have in a day? Do you waste time, or do you make time work in your favor? Period.
And see, I'll be very transparent in this case. For me personally, like when I have free time, I'm probably the least productive. I'm a person who thrives in structure. So, and I maybe that's why like the 9 to 5 really does suit me, because I know that at such and such time I got to be at this place. I got a gap from maybe 12 to 1 to do whatever I want to do, for my personal business, or I got gaps from 5 to 7. And I think having that structure helps me to be productive when I do have those gaps. Like as an instructor, professor, like during the summer times, I'm probably like less productive than I am actually during the school year, which seems like really off. But that's just something that I kind of learned about myself over time, is that I thrive and I look for and I need that structure in order to be as productive as I can.
Well, think about this then, John, right? You got your photography business, right? And I mean, you're booked 24/7. Like everybody knows that part. But how do you build out that structure for your business, right? Even if it's not, the typical going in a 9 to 5, but just that time devoted to it, just the business. How do you build that out?
So once again, that's where those gaps come into play. So like I know if I'm working and I'm doing my class stuff up until maybe 5 o'clock p.m. And, of course, you got to spend time with the family. You got to do other things as well because you have other obligations. So maybe I have like a small window from like 5 to 7. I know that during 5 to 7, I'm focusing solely on my business. That helps me to be super productive, super locked in, super focused. However, like over the summertime, when I don't teach any classes, then, I might wake up. I'm still an early riser, but then when I wake up, it's like, okay, well, I could work on business stuff. Let me go play with JJ for a little bit, my son, or let me go do this, and I'll get to that business stuff later. So I will say that once again, like when you're very busy, you become more, or you learn to become more efficient with the time that you do have. That's allotted for whatever it is that you want to do. So, I mean, for me, that's just works out that way.
Yeah, and I think for me, I got to stay busy. Like, I feel like if I'm not busy, I'm not being productive. So, like, my schedule from the time I wake up to the time I go to sleep, in some fashion, some way, I'm working on my business. Now, it may not necessarily be, me taking phone calls or me going to see properties and things like that. But if I might be working on something with my website, I might be working on something with, the logistics of my business. It's something, right? Something has to be done for me to feel like I'm accomplishing something, because it's those little things that's going to move you forward.
Mm-hmm. I agree, about those little things that help to propel you forward. But have you always, taken that approach? I mean, even because, you were working at 9 to 5 at one point in time. So once you became full-time as an entrepreneur, as a realtor, was it easy to develop those habits, or was that something that you had to put some work into to make that transition?
Oh, I had to put all the work in. Like, there was no question. I was a horrible employee. Like, there was no question about that. Like, I did not do good at being an employee. But the structure is what taught me to I use some of the structures from like the 9 to 5. I kind of use in my day-to-day business. I had to learn it on the fly.
So I know that COVID has really impacted a lot of people's daily routines, just even transitioning from being able to go out and do your work to now having to pretty much work remotely. So for the entrepreneur, somebody who's already used to having a lot of that free time or being or starting their day off at the house, like how has that been for you? Has that interrupted, your routine at all?
I don't think that COVID necessarily stopped my daily routine. It just gave me more stuff to do. For me, I thrive off of having a lot of stuff to do because it makes me feel like I'm being productive. The worst thing that I want to do is have 24 hours and I waste 23 of them, right? I want to be able to maximize the whole 24. So, like I say, if anything, it just gave me a way to be more creative. If I can't go outside, how can I still get clients? Oh, okay. Let me sit down and figure this thing out. So it just added more to my plate.
And that's a really interesting point. It reminds me of this quote by who's that muscle bound dude who's like a motivational speaker. He talks really aggressive. And
E.T.
Yes, yeah. What's his name?
Eric Thomas.
Okay, yeah. He had this quote where he says, like, the DNA of your success is in your routine. And he used the analogy of, once again, being really precise with the amount of time that you have or with that free time. And he said, like, a lot of people, might just wake up, and he used the analogy of, like, with the gun, just shooting, boom, 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 boom. Yeah. This is what I want to get done every day. But he says, like, for somebody to be successful, they got to go in there with that precision, like a John Wick type, where you sniping.
Yeah.
And, you're not wasting not one bullet, or in our case, not 1 hour of time.
Yeah.
So, and even like when you break down like that quote, like the DNA of your successes in your routine, and you look at what DNA really is. I remember one of my scientist friends broke that down once before. It says, like, our DNA carries that genetic code. But if your DNA can also mutate, so if you didn't have it, you can develop that. You can build routines that can be conducive to you becoming successful. But it does take repetition, and of course, it takes a while to change or develop those habits. So, I mean, that's what you just reminded me of. But going back to something that you said earlier, you talked about when you wake up, you also write down your goals.
Yeah.
Like, how do you determine, like, okay, this is going to be a daily goal? Like what are those daily goals?
Well, for me, the daily goal it's a sum of the bigger goal, right? So my bigger goal is to, be this multi-millionaire, billionaire, whatever, in rental properties and, passive income and things like that. So my thing is, how do I break that down? Because you can't tackle all of that in one day. You need something that's measurable, right? So I break it down into months, into days, into hours. And once I break that down, I tackle each one of them one by one until I'm ultimately at my bigger goal.
So when you're talking about like these daily goals that you write out, of course, you can't attain today I'm going to become a millionaire. But
Right.
like, what are some of those steps that you take along the way that you kind of affirm with yourself, or you set as those daily, tasks to reach for the day?
So I don't know if you ever heard of a guy called Grant Cardone, right? And he was just breaking down on, what would it take to reach your ultimate financial goal? And you break that down into, the next 5 years. And then you break those down into the next, month. For me, it's all about numbers. So how much would I need to make in a month to reach that goal in the next 5 years of becoming a millionaire? Once I get that number, everything else revolves around that number, right? Everything. The people that I meet, the conversations that I have, the money that I save, everything revolves around that one number. If I'm able to hit that one number 1 month, I know I can do it the second month, and I know I can do it the third month, and then ultimately I get to that final goal.
It's interesting because you're talking about like building that consistency.
Yeah.
And one of the things is like, once you've already done it once, it makes it a little bit easier to keep going in that. It reminds me of like, okay, so of course, like with COVID, like a lot of the gyms have been closed down, so
Right.
we went and bought a treadmill. So I hadn't been working out for like maybe like a month or two, once COVID hit. So I bought that treadmill, and the first day on that treadmill was torture.
I can imagine. Yeah.
Legs was stiff and everything. Like I never wanted to get back on it. But the next day it wasn't as bad, and like I had to force myself to do it. But that's the thing. So now I run about 4 miles every morning, Monday through Friday. And the toughest thing is always going to be that first mile, because when you first wake up, you get on there and then it's like, okay, I don't really want to do this, but you do it anyways.
Yeah.
And then you keep running. So after you knock out that first mile, okay, now I can do the second mile. And then as you set those small goals, like you were saying, like I don't say, okay, I need to get 4 miles done right now.
Yeah,
no, let's get to mile 1. Let's get to mile 2. Let's get to mile 3. And then let's get to mile 4. And then you're done. But there's somebody, what's his name? John Maxwell, I think. He says there's 2 types of people. A person who says they have to wait until they feel like it before they do it, or a person who says I have to do it so I feel like it. And like that's the way that it is like on the treadmill. I mean, I don't want to run, but I'm gonna go do it until I feel like it. Because then eventually, like after you've done it for like a little bit, you start getting a little pumped. You just look in the mirror, you see you sweat a little bit,
Yeah.
so that's motivating you to keep going. And I think the same thing applies with our goals. A lot of times, a lot of the stuff that we need to do to be successful is going to be that dirty work. Things that you don't want to do.
Yeah.
Because if it was easy, everybody would do it. I think you said that on one of the previous episodes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's where success is won, in the trenches.
And you're absolutely right? And that same analogy is, you could use it like for everyday success, entrepreneur 101, whatever you want to call it, is first off, people always say they have a goal in their mind, right? I don't know one person who is okay with where they're at, right? Everybody wants to be further in their life. They want to be successful. They want to do good. But the thing is, they never get on that treadmill, right? So that's the thing. They never get on that treadmill. They just always say, okay, I want to do it, but they never even get that first day in. They just sit back and just say, "I wish I want." And I remember there's a motivational speaker named Inky Johnson, and he said that people want the reward, but they never want to play the game. It's like they want this reward, they want the trophy, but they don't want to play the game. They don't want to get their hands dirty. They don't want to do any of that, but they want to reap all the benefits that comes along with it, and that's just not gonna happen.
Yeah, you mentioned like people want that success, but they're afraid to get on the treadmill was the analogy that you used.
Yeah.
And it takes me back to something that you said in one of our previous episodes about that analysis paralysis.
Yeah.
And so we've been talking about fear in like a lot of our previous episodes and, talking about the importance of using it as a tool towards success. And I heard somewhere somebody said like, having fear will keep you sharp, but being scared will paralyze you. And like a lot of people, might be scared to start their business, which keeps them, like you said, from actually doing something or doing some of the work that needs to be done. But if you're working with that fear, and normally like that fear is like, man, I just don't want to mess up. So that's something, like I said, that helps you to, stay sharp.
That's understandable.
Yeah, it really is. And that's a part of the game. Like you said, if it's just really all about just getting out there and getting started. I was listening to this podcast with Gilbert Arenas. He's a retired basketball player. And one of the things that he says, like, it's not about hitting the shots. It's about not backing down from a challenge. like it doesn't matter, like, if the shot goes in or, doesn't. It's, am I willing to take the shot? And that's what a lot of people just need to really take that approach with their businesses. Like, of course, you're running that chance of, things not working out the way that you want to. But I heard it's a lot easier to, what's that? It's easier to feel the feeling of, what is it? Hold on. What is it? It was a quote. It's like, it's easier to deal with the emotions of fear than the emotions of regret. So, looking back, everybody's like, that shoulda, woulda, could've. Yeah. At least if you tried it and it didn't work out, at least you know why. You're getting some type of information. As you talked about before, turning those lessons or those L's into lessons.
Absolutely.
Or turning those losses into lessons. But, I mean, you do just got to get started.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing for people is they overcomplicate everything, right? They think about the worst thing that could happen. And sometimes that is the case, right? And sometimes you have to just think about those what-if situations, but those what-if situations should not stop you from moving forward, like it shouldn't. And oftentimes what people do is they create these false narratives in their head of, well, if I do this, then this is going to happen. Or, well, if I do this right now, or I'll wait till next year and then it's going to be perfect. Like, those days never come. You'll be waiting for the rest of your life. And I think like you said, it's the fear. You know what I have a conversation with a lot of people at is that they always depend on their friends to hold them accountable rather than them actually holding themselves accountable. What do you think is more important? Do you think that the people around you, because ultimately this is a circle that you support, that, help get you to that next level, you lean on for advice, but do you think that that's more important than holding yourself accountable?
No, I mean, I think it starts with yourself because, your friends can, somebody could text you like, yo, Glenn, did you work out this morning? And you could say no. I mean, you can lie, and they wouldn't know none the better. So I think it does start with yourself. Like, if you're not holding yourself accountable, how can you expect somebody else to have a bigger influence on you than you? Yeah. So I think that's where it really does start. Your circle of friends are there, I think, to hold you accountable if you guys have that type of relationship where you are transparent with them. But I think it really does begin and end with the individual. And I think that goes back to, like, what motivates you a little bit. You have to be internally motivated to some extent to be able to push yourself. We've been talking so far about, routines and accountability. But how important is discipline? Especially like in your line of work as an entrepreneur. You mentioned earlier, like, you don't have a boss telling you like, hey, you need to be up by this time, or you have to hit X amount of sales calls in a day. So how does discipline factor in to your business?
Man, dude, that is a great question. I think for me it's essential, right? And I say that because when I first went into business for myself, I was not disciplined. I think before then, I had all the thoughts in my head of, when I go in business by myself, I'm gonna do X, Y, and Z. I'm gonna get up at 4:30 in the morning, and it just doesn't happen like that. Because if you think about it, you got all this free time. You have to build a new life for yourself, right? Work wise, you have to build it from scratch, and then you get lazy. You just get lazy. It's human nature. You don't even know where to start. And I think that's the most troubling part. You got all the free time to be on social media if you want, to be on the phone, to do all of these things, even though you should be working on your business. You're supposed to be making these calls. You're supposed to be getting out here networking. All of these things, but it still don't matter. When I first started, I was not disciplined at all. I had to force myself. And I think that's the thing. Like, discipline, like being disciplined isn't something that people are born with. Like, it just doesn't happen. You have to train yourself to do it. You have to want whatever it is that you want out of life. You have to want that bad enough to make yourself get out of the bed and do certain things. You got to want it bad enough to make yourself, grind harder, wake up early, and to put yourself in uncomfortable positions. That's all it is. Like, discipline isn't something, like I said, isn't something that you're born with. It's something that you have to force yourself, and it's something that you learn over time. And if you don't learn it, you're not going to be successful.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't think you ever get to a place where you say, I'm completely disciplined. Discipline is something that you kind of reiterate every single day. And it's a choice, once you, like you mentioned, to kind of make sure that whatever it is that you're working towards, that is greater than the distractions that are around you. Because like you mentioned, we do live in a world full of distractions, social media. For me, like, I love to watch, like, sports shows and things like that.
Yeah.
But those can also, like I said, take away from whatever, like, the goal is. And I will say I got very disciplined when I was writing my dissertation. That's probably the most disciplined that I've been. Just because, like, I was looking towards, being done with it. But then it's still a 2-year process of writing that, that dissertation. So it's like every single day you need to make sure that you're devoting time to something that you're not really wanting to do. Like, I would love to be going, doing this, that, or the other, like with my family, or, hanging out with my friends. But I was like, I need to write. And I wanted to make sure, like, every day from like 2 o'clock to like 5 o'clock, that was my time to just sit down and devote to writing. And it had to, like, really eliminate a lot of those distractions. I used to have to turn my phone off. I used to have to put on ambient music in the background just to kind of silence my mind. Because, your mind can take you places when you're trying to do something, be productive. Your mind's like, what was that thing that you was looking at on Amazon that you should be buying? Your mind just always goes random places. So, I mean, discipline is definitely something that you have to work at every single day.
Absolutely. And you know what's so crazy about that? When we were speaking to Ray Vaughn, and he was talking about that interview process that he had to go through, right? And like he said, like, it was like a 2-year period before he even got hired. So how do you stay motivated for 2 years writing a paper?
It's actually it ties right back into what you said earlier on the episode, where you have the big lofty goal, which is to have this dissertation written. But on the day-to-day, it's write one paragraph. Read 5 articles that you can use to reference. And then when you look at it in like those small attainable goals, all of those little small attainable goals add up to that big lofty goal that you want at the end of the day. So, and once again, going back to the treadmill, mile 1, mile 2, mile 3, mile 4, mile 5. But in this case, it's chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, 4, and 5, which is how many chapters my dissertation has, 5 chapters. So it's really just going in and just being diligent in the little small mundane tasks that ultimately lead to you getting what you want or what you need. I was listening to, actually I was reading this book. It was an audio book I can't remember the name of the book, but it's by Alex Stein, I believe. And he works with a lot of athletes, high profile athletes. And he was talking about in the book one time where he was able to observe Kobe Bryant in a workout. And he says during Kobe's workout, he kept doing like the fundamental things over and over and over and over and over again. And he was like, well, you're one of the best players in the world. Like, why are you practicing this stuff that they teach you in middle school and high school? He was like, everything else builds from that. If the fundamentals aren't right, then anything that you try to put on top of that is not going to work. So the same applies to my daily approach. If what I'm doing, like picking up, reading one article, writing one paragraph, sending, my advisor an email just to kind of check in, if I'm not doing those basic things, it's going to really deter me from trying to do the lofty things, down the road. So, yeah. You just got to, focus on the basics.
One of the things that really amazes me is like when I first got started, right? Man, you don't understand how I used to try to play major leagues while I was still in the minor leagues. I used to always think that I had to do all these big things to become successful. Like I needed to do this, I needed to do that. And I used to always negate the small details. And I used to always see all my friends and I'm like, yo, I got to do it big if I want to be like them. But I didn't understand that it was the small things that I did daily that was going to get me to that end goal. And I'm telling you, since then, just been working on those small things every single day. And I look back at where I was, I can see, man, like I'm on my way. Everything is happening just the way that I planned. I can see that now I'm in a position to reach my goal just by following those small details.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with you that it really is those little things that you do daily to keep you on the path to success. As we talked about, like one of the things that can really knock you off that path is going to be those distractions, that can come up, and even like being discouraged, that, some people might just think like, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing when in actuality they are. So doing those little things each and every day, like I said, can help keep you on that path to ultimately get into whatever your goal is. So, as we get ready to wrap it up, I just know like from this conversation, one of the things that I took away that you do that I might start implementing myself is, like you said, writing down those daily goals, because that is something that I don't do.
Yeah.
I am going to start doing that. And I would actually challenge our listeners and our viewers to do that as well. And then, if you guys who are listening or watching this, if you guys have any examples of like your daily routine, man, drop them in the comments below, or, send us a message and let us know, because that is something that other people might be looking to do.
If you guys are watching, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below. And whatever you guys are listening on, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.
And once again, this has been another episode of the Wolf and the Doctor podcast. We love to hear you guys' feedback. So if this is on Instagram where you're seeing it, reach out to us and talk back with us as well. So we'll see you guys next week.